I started probably at my uncle's workshop next door neighbour on a farm when I was probably only about 7 or 8, and he had a collection of really nice old cars and he used to restore vehicles. Wasn't really a modifier, but he could do most things and he had a heavily equipped workshop, so I worked beside him as a youngster, and that's what gave me the bug, and I actually built my first street rod when I was in my early 20s. I got 3 boys. One runs the workshop for me. The second one has done on my website and used to do the books here, and he's just gone off to do his own business. And my third son at one of the local hospitals in admin.
My earliest memories of cars was probably cruising around in the back of my parents' 34 coupe. Oh, many years ago. I would have been 8 years old, 7 maybe. Yeah, down in SA, cold days in the dicky seat. Yeah, a bit of frostbite, it was good. So the C10 we're building for Workshop Wars is basically a shop truck that we've had in thought for a while. Originally we were going to build a dually truck. The C10 we've had for a while, so basically the parts for the dually truck we're now putting into the C10 truck. Upgrading from a 5-lug to an 8-lug all round, 400 cubes, small block, blown, fuel injected.
We always wanted a car with injection supercharger with exposed injector lines. It's been a dream for many years.
Nice paint, all heaps of custom chassis work, custom sheet metal, firewall, tubs, custom dash. We're going to shade the tailgate, we're going to do soft edge glass. I guess the list just goes on and on.
I guess the whole idea is to support some of our suppliers and use their products as best we can and create something that's absolutely awesome that people are going to be just astounded by and go wow when they see it for the first time.
Basically, we've got all the body, the cab, the bed, the whole front nose going off the frame. We've removed the engine and transmission. Now we're beginning the tear down of the frame, where the boys have marked out the front suspension, the rear differential centre lines on the frame. So when that's removed, we've got a good spot to start from when we put the new front and rear end in. Had the cab sandblasted everywhere except for the roof. Basically, we're just going to strip the roof ourselves to prevent warpage from the media hitting the panel, causing heat and damage. Next step, we're pulling the bed apart, pulling the tubs out of the bed for our big chassis notch, which is going to allow the frame to lay on the ground. As soon as there's no material on the metal to protect it, we'll go rusty within an hour. So basically we've got to prep it, clean it, and get some sort of protective coating on it.
When someone comes in and wants to do a build, the first thing we do is sit down with them and they fill out a detailed sheet as to what their purpose of the vehicle is, the look they want on the vehicle, whether it be modern, retro, old school or restoration. We check with them what sort of engine horsepower they want, whether they want fuel economy to drive on weekends or whether they don't care, how fast they want to go. And then from there we introduce them to the people in the workshop once they've proven that they're serious and they want to build something. We've got a very detailed Excel spreadsheet that you go through and list every single item in the build. And then you start talking about time frames and budgets and things like that. Radio Todd, so these are our 4 colours?
Yep.
Wow, they look awesome, don't they?
So, yep, this is the cappuccino.
Yes.
A little bit more red in it, extra 10%. Copper.
Right.
Amazon moss.
Yes.
And finally the champagne.
Okay, the champagne's my preferred, and this is straight out of the Hot Hues range.
Yep, that's right. So, in the back here, not bad.
No, that looks good. That's our choice.
Because the car was in a slight bingle back in the day, we want to make sure it's all very square. We're going to put the frame on our jig, line everything up on centre, take a heap of measurements, front, back, side to side, square it all up. The left-hand rail's got a bit of a dip on the underside, so we're going to work from the rear and work forward, and we're basically going to set all our levels. We've got bevel boxes and spirit levels, we're going to get it all square. Placing the engine in there is really just to see what it's going to look like. physically work out our heights if we need to set, because we're running a big engine plate. We need to roughly work out how low we want before we cut into the engine plate. We've got the independent front end where we want it, and then from that point we'll probably go back down to the frame again.
Hey, we're looking, Brett, eh?
It's not looking too good actually. It's a little bit out of square. Probably from that bit of damage that I've got.
Yeah,
oh, that could have been me.
The previous driver had an incident, so I guess we need to make a decision here, guys. Do we start again?
With the frame, we decided that the original frame wasn't going to cut it. Basically, couldn't get it low enough to how we wanted it to suit the cross member for the front end we got. Most of the chassis builds we do, I do a 3D CAD model. Make sure that everything works from straight off the bat. So if it works in the CAD and the dimensions are correct, we know it's going to go straight into the frame. Transfer that into the plasma table, cuts the plates, the boys weld the plates up, and we just got new rolling chassis ready to rock and roll. It'll definitely sit on the seals, this truck. We've lifted the chassis to be level with the seal as well, so we'll put little bump stops in, so it'll be low for sure. Back in 1960 to 61, Ford come up with the unibody, which means joining the tub to the cab. Chev never did that. Thought maybe we might join the tub to the cab, so that was a bit of a different direction. Deleted the original dash altogether, and we've started making an aluminium sheet metal dash using Dakota Digital gauges, which we got out of the States. We're making two sort of fighter pods, and we're gonna have the shifter raised up above the bench seat, which will look quite cool, we think. Hey, Dino. Yep. Look what I got for you here. Perfect size, fill that in. Finish the tailgate off.
We just need to raise the centre up a little bit just so it holds its shape.
Okay.
Quite well.
Bit of curve in it.
Yeah.
Bit of hammer time in here.
Yeah.
Okay.
The C10 was my daily driver for 6 or 7 years, and I guess it's got a lot of fond memories. It used to carry engines in the back, and it was actually used as a work truck. When it's turned off and it's sitting with the bags deactivated with no air, the truck will be almost on the ground. And then when the truck comes up to ride height, it'll still sit super low. It's going to be running massive 20 by 14 inch rims on the back with some really big rubber.
I'm pretty picky when it comes to finishing and how stuff's engineered and how it needs to be put into the vehicle. Simple is sometimes better than going overkill with colours, so we're going to go pretty basic. Real nice champagne, hot hues colour, black finishes. The engine's going to be polished with black finishes. Real basic trim with a bench seat, removable dash. He wants to show off wiring. We do pretty good electrical work. I guess really we're trying to show off the features that we're good at. Sheet metal, chassis work, engineering, overkill on the engineering. That's what we want to be doing. So the C10 we're building for Workshop Wars, it'd be a wicked bit of gear. I guess we're upgrading from a 5-lug to an 8-lug all around. 400 cube small block, blown, fuel injected, nice paint, all heaps of custom chassis work, custom sheet metal, firewall, tubs, custom dash. We're going to shade the tailgate, we're going to do soft edge glass. I guess the list just goes on and on.
Okay, we're starting to put the engine together now. Starting to put the cam bearings in the block. Little by little until it's in there. That's good. We're just installing our 2-piece rear main seal. The first half has to go in before the crankshaft. Just about to start fitting our crankshaft. These are our main caps. All threads already lubed already. Okay, now we're going to start torquing it down. It's obviously a Chevy, so everything's mainly imperial measurements. We'll start off at 45 foot-pounds. So we've almost completed the first stage, which is 45 foot-pounds. Now we move on to our second stage, which is 65. We do mainly all custom work here, so this is what I've always wanted to do, is just purely custom stuff. And we just want to make sure the crankshaft's going to turn nice and freely for us, as it does. no binding.
Now that we've eliminated the old frame, the body mounts all stay in the same position because the body mounts are fixed in the body. So we use the old frame purely just to check the body mounts are in the correct location, and then we took all the measurements from those body mounts on the frame. We have modified some of them. Once we squared all the front sheet metal up with a few shims, we added that, and then we actually lifted the body mount locations on the new frame. So we shouldn't have to run any shims, hopefully. Raise the frame up so it sits up higher and sits level with the seal on the underside. We've cut the hole in the middle of the tub where the notch protrudes through the tub section. We're going to finish welding up the frame, get the frame out of the jig table.
About to start installing the first of our pistons into the engine. The hardest part is getting the pistons and all the rings compressed into the cylinder bores. My favourite tool is the taper ring compressor. As you push it down, it goes into a taper, which makes it a lot easier to get all the rings compressed at once. Okay, well I've torqued up all the bottom end, all the rods. Now it's time to check our deck height. When we set our compression ratio, our static compression ratios, we need to know every size. We need to know deck height, we need to know piston CC, we need to know head gasket thickness, we need to know cylinder head CC as well. That all plays a part in static compression ratio. This deck height we're looking for, we're getting close to the zero deck height on this. We've set it at 5 thou under. Now it looks flush, and we use the dial gauge to get an accurate measurement. If there's a difference between 5-6 thou between them, that's acceptable. It's well within limits. 1 thou wouldn't even be the thickness of a hair. This machine here is the ring file machine. We need to file down the rings to a certain clearance. And now it goes back in the bore to be rechecked. If the clearances are wrong, you're either going to have a piston and bore clearance issue, or you're going to have an excessive blow-by, where the compression and the combustion of the engine will blow past the rings.
We've assembled teams from the best of Australia's car building and car tuning workshops to see who can build the toughest street monster. Our teams will go head-to-head in a final fuel-burning rubber shredding competition. It's time to get down and slam the C10 with some airbag suspension. But all is not going to plan in Brisbane.
How we looking, Brett?
Not looking too good actually. It's a little bit out of square. It's probably from that bit of damage that I've got.
We decided that the original frame wasn't going to cut it. We'll just build a new frame. So we CAD designed a frame, transfer that into the plasma table, cuts the plates, the boys weld the plates up, and we just got new rolling chassis ready to rock and roll. Obviously the body mounts all stay in the same position because the body mounts are fixed in the body. So we use the old frame purely just to check the body mounts are in the correct location, and then we took all the measurements from those body mounts on the frame. We have modified some of them. Once we squared all the front sheet metal up with a few shims, we added that, and then we actually lifted the body mount locations on the new frame.
We're running the tubing pretty much inboard from the chassis rails so we can tie the cab mounts, body mounts, cross members, suspension, all that sort of stuff into it.
We've raised the frame up so it sits up higher and sits level with the seal on the underside. We've cut the hole in the middle of the tub where the notch protrudes through the tub section. We gave ourselves about 10mm clearance, so hopefully it's pretty tight when it comes down into final position, so the sheet metal just rolls up over the notch. All that's going to get covered. You don't even see any, but all the prettiness gone. For the diff, we decided to go with a sheet metal housing. Compilation Engineering supplied the housing. It's a lot narrower than our standard notchback housing, therefore allows us to get the bags in further and in the correct location to have enough chassis clearance. We're using Slam Specialties airbags, front and rear. These are an RE7, meaning it's a 7-inch diameter. They run an internal bladder, and as the bladder shrinks, the outside still stays the same diameter. That's the total overall diameter. It doesn't change whether it's expanded at full lift or whether it's shrunk down to low, sitting the chassis on the ground.
We're just getting the body back on the chassis here. We're going to settle our door gaps. We're going to check all the alignment, mark out all our fuel lines, air lines, and things like that. The body will get pulled off the chassis, put on a jig. The body will get body worked, and then the chassis will get worked, so we can work on 2 things at once. This is my passion. That's what I love to do. Everyone here is the same as me. We live and breathe it, so it makes a good work atmosphere. So we're just fitting all the engine bay panels in here. These are Clecos. They allow us to pull the panel on and off in the exact same spot while we do all our filing and our trimming. It's crucial to get all these gaps accurate. You can't set these gaps accurate if the panel's moving around on you all the time. They need to be set in place.
Well, we've got to get both of these gauge clusters the same. We've just got to get all these pieces together and get them fitted in the cab so the Sparky can come tomorrow and we'll start running the wiring and all the electrical stuff on it.
Because the car's on, when it's stacked on the airbag, it's so low, the tail shaft is fouling on the floor. I've had to cut a hole out to pretty much just clear the angle of the tail shaft in position where it's going to sit once it's on the ground.
The staff we've got in-house have all got a wide variety of skills. Jake's a mechanic, but he can still weld. Dean's a coach builder, but he can still fabricate, he can still paint, he can do body work. Bretto's a panel beater, he can still weld and fabricate. It allows us to work a lot better and more efficiently as well. On the high-end fabrication stuff, Dean's really, really good at TIG welding. So yes, we can all TIG weld, even myself, I can have a crack, but it's not really going to be the finish we're after, not on this particular build. And on this build, we're going to leave the welds shown just to show the appreciation for the fabrication in the frame. It's not body filled over and made all pretty like a show car. It's going to be driven, so we don't need to go to that extent, but we want to show the engineering and show the quality of workmanship as well at the same time. We've made a pretty big headway on the engine bay sheet metal, finished the motor mounts, the trans mounts. We're going to dummy run all the electrical wiring, which is pretty crucial because then we can pull that out and take that to the dyno to get the engine dynoed. So it's a big stepping process. We're going to have all the fuel system at the dyno, running exactly how it's going to run in the car, so when we put it back in the car, we don't have to go get the chassis dyno done on the vehicle because we know that's how it's going to perform.
I've been around cars since I was probably 14. I'm now 22. It was originally with Japanese cars or import cars, and then as I got older, or as I matured, I guess, I went more into old school cars, just the feel of them. I actually had a HQ Premier with a 350 Chev take me to my formal, which was very nice, and I actually got to see that build because it was actually one of my close friends' cars, and I still talk to him to this day, and he's still doing things to his cars, and that's probably the main and first build that I was actually around with the old school stuff. It's been an ongoing adventure, I guess. I did a Cert 1 in automotive with the MTA. They look after 4 of us apprentices here at Superformance. So all my training is based here at Superformance. My trainer actually comes out and visits me each month. We make set appointments so he can go through my training with me.
During uni, I did a parts apprenticeship, which was through MTAQ. They were really good back then, and currently now I'm doing an automotive refinishing, like spray painting apprenticeship as well. Claire's doing an MTA parts interpreter apprenticeship as well. We've got 3 other staff members through MTAQ. Basically, really good technical advice and just awesome for apprenticeships, basically.
So the MTA offers pre-vocational or school-based apprenticeships. They also offer pre-vocational apprenticeships and post-trade services. They're fabulous with the information that they provide you, and they actually give you after-hours information as well. So if you ever get stuck on a question or any section of your training, you can always contact them and they're always willing to give you a hand. I get a lot of people that don't think that I know much about cars, and I'm not going to say that I know everything. I'm definitely still learning, but you do get the odd occasion where they want to argue their points with you, and I have to put them onto Grant, and he kind of puts them back in their place and says he trusts me and puts it back in my capable hands. The coolest thing I've sold is recently an IFS, that was from TCI. So that's an independent front suspension, and you can have the options of power and manual rack and pinions. You've also got the options of brake upgrades and things like that. You've got wheelwood brakes usually, and you've got them in red and black calipers and different piston ratings.
Through Claire's training with the MTAQ, she's definitely advanced her knowledge and has become a really good asset, especially on the phone. Like, if I've ever got an issue with a customer or someone rings up, I can always just give it the quick handball to Claire, and Claire can sort it out, what needs to be done.
I'm very proud to be a part of Superformance and be able to say that I'm a part of the guys' builds and promote their work as well, and definitely their fabrication skills and paint panel skills.
For 36 years, Superformance has been known as a car building place and for selling parts. As people walk in the door, there's rows and rows of parts laid out in a supermarket format where people can actually touch and feel and look at it. We chose that plan after visiting America several times and looking at what people were doing over there, rather than people just walking to a counter and not actually seeing or touching any parts. We've got a big inventory of Chevy truck parts and a lot of performance parts, and we've got a person in Los Angeles that assists us with all the importation from America that works directly with us and for us. We send parts all across Australia into New Zealand and parts of Asia. We have a container service monthly, and we do weekly air orders, so with all those parts coming and going. We do Ford, Chevy and Holden engines regularly, and then we do the more obscure ones like Mopar, Pontiac and that to order. That's no problems. We regularly bring in obscure parts, which could be new old stock for a vehicle right back as early 10s and 20s in the 1900s. We carry a lot of street rod parts from 23 through to 36 Ford, and it's possible to build a complete street rod with all new parts, so there's not one original part on the car. So most of your 32 and 34 Fords, or even your 23 T-buckets that you see, will be built completely as a new car with all new parts.
We've assembled teams from the best of Australia's car building and car tuning workshops to see who can build the toughest street monster. Our teams will go head-to-head in a final fuel-burning rubber shredding competition. With only 2 weeks to go until the drag race at Calder, the pressure is on. It looks like the boys at Superformance have their work cut out for them.
We've run all the wiring loosely. We're going to pull the engine out, and we're going to physically wire the engine on a stand so we can get all the injector lines really tied up near the injectors, so minimal conduits will be seen. We're going to hide all the plugs. So basically, while he's doing that, we're going to do a slight mod on the firewall. We've had to change the distributor. Basically, it was fouling on the supercharger, so we're going with a crab cap style distributor now. Only issue with that is the coil lead's going to foul on the firewall, so we're just going to have to make like a little notch in the firewall, which is not what we were hoping on. We wanted to keep it nice and clean, but that's just how cookie crumbles.
We've had a few problems fitting the Dizzy into the engine with the manifold on. We found a bit of a casting issue in the manifold, so we've had to pull it back off. We've had to die grind it and give it a bit more clearance, so our Dizzy will fit in there nice and easy. When you build a car, you fit things probably 2-3 times, pull it apart 4 or 5 times, and it's just sort of one of those things, like because of the application, and we moved the engine as far back as possible and got it as low as possible, we're going to run into a few little hiccups along the way, which is not a big issue with the crew I got on hand. It's quite simple to make rectifications and quickly modify stuff. This is the intake air temperature sensor. It was in the front of the injector hat. It sat outside the bonnet. It was very ugly. So we've capped that there, and we're going to put it into the lower half of the manifold, which is going to be better there anyway. Reading the intake air temperature off the charged air is better than having it up the top. Charged air will always be hotter, so you're going to get a better tune.
The interior of it is very 80s looking. They've obviously been done a long time ago. We're going to bring it more in style with the rest of the truck. We're going to colour match the stitching. It'll be a black interior at this stage, but yeah, the interior, the sewing and all that with it, we're going to try and match the rest of the painted parts of the car, which is going to be a fair use of paint inside and outside. So yeah, it's going to have to be a fairly close match to look right.
You're going to, like, if you screw it on, you're going to see the screw heads, that's all.
We've gone to fit the starter motor. We're having a bit of clearance issues with the headers. We're going to have to modify the headers, cut a section of pipe out and remake it just to go around the bottom of the starter motor, set it beside it. That's custom cars for you. Nothing's guaranteed to fit, everything's modified, everything's custom, so you don't really know sometimes until you get into it. Yeah, constant problem solving.
The pressure's on at Superformance as they scramble to get the C10 finished and on the way to Calder Park Raceway.
Yeah, the truck's made a bit of progress. Got the truck into primer yesterday. We kind of cut a few corners, I guess, to get it into primer, but steps that we can go back and do once we've got the primer in and allow for its correct curing time. So while it's curing, we can be doing the other stuff on the inside of the car.
Pretty long hours. We've been doing 16-hour days, us and most of the boys. We've got to push to get it done. We've got no choice. In the last week of it, so it's all hands on deck. We're starting to lay out all the electrical for the computer systems, or the engine, body, lights, everything like that. The trimmers are here starting to fit out the interior. Yeah, everyone's got a job to do. I went over to Jerry's engine dyno and we set up all the EFI and I helped Jerry tune. We ran out of time. We were about 3 days behind on getting the engine back into the car, so I only had time to put a base tune in it.
We're running it up with carburetors first because it's just far easier to set the initial engine, make sure the cam's running correctly and everything's running sweet on the engine, it's making power before we swap to the more complex injection. The thing is, if we know the mechanics of the engine work correctly, once the fuel injection system goes on, we know if there's any issues then it's only in the injection side of it only, not the actual engine. The engine is a dark little M-based engine, a small block Chevy. It's out to 406 cubic inches. It's running a BDS 871 billet blower with billet internals. And then it's running a unique injector hat which BDS have made up for us from the States, and that'll have a fast injection system coupled up to it.
On base tune it made about 650 horsepower, so that'll get us started, and then once we get the engine in the vehicle, then I'll tune it again on the road and we'll see if we can wind up the wick a bit. It should hook up all right with the 15-inch wide wheels on the back. One of those things we have to tune is the suspension while we're down there too, adjust that because that'll all be fresh to us.
At the moment, I'm just finishing off the front inner guards that Dino's made. I just had to weld in a tube to go around the steering shaft, just to give it a neater looking appearance. We're still trying to make everything look as nice as possible in the short amount of time we're given, just so it doesn't look like it's been half-assed or thrown together. There's been some pretty big hours. Everyone's putting in the extra effort, 6-7 day weeks, up to 20-hour days. Sometimes tensions get a little high, but generally everything's going pretty well.
We've definitely knocked a lot off the list the last 2 weeks, especially the major hurdle being the paint side of it and body work, which is a long week, that's for sure. But the paint laid down really nice. We just cut it and gave it a quick buff and it's come up really good. So I guess as long as we don't put any scratches in it in the reassembly, that's definitely one of the major steps in any build. Always worry about it, I guess, more so, because paint's one of those things that can go on really good one day and then really ordinary the next day. Got the trimmers here from Evans Trim Shop out at Toowoomba on site doing the carpet for us, which is really helping us out instead of having to move the vehicle off site. The tub needs to be rhino lined, which is pretty basic. It's all prepped. We just need to find a time to roll it into the booth just to do that. So we might try and do that late tonight so it'll be dry in the morning so we can get back into it. I guess being a few days out from sending the truck down to Victoria to Cold Park, we've got a pretty long list still. A few hurdles which we're hoping to smash out quite quickly, and then if we get past those hurdles, we'll be smooth sailing. I guess it basically comes down to more paintwork and bodywork, which is always as mentioned, is always the headache in building a car. So we get the engine bay panel work done. I think that's a really big hurdle. Once the engine bay panel work's done, engine in, we can have the car running like it's pretty much wide, ready to go already. Last couple of weeks have been pretty big. Like, some of us have worked last 15 days in a row, you know, Saturday, Sunday, up till 9 o'clock last Sunday, and then 2 a.m.s quite regularly, which isn't great for anybody, but sometimes it might get a little bit stressful and sometimes a bit slower in some areas. I guess you just got to keep people motivated and doing exciting things as well.
Huge days, like 17 hours, a couple of days there last week, and 12 would be the least, so big days.
I guess we're all pretty broad, so we can move around the different areas of the car, and I can just delegate and people can just do stuff, which makes it really handy. It's not one person concentrating all the time on a particular area. So we had a lot of people bodyworking last week, which don't bodywork, you know what I mean, just helping out, so it's really good. The colour turned out a little bit different to our sample we did in the very beginning. A little bit darker, which in the booth it looked really gold, which I wasn't really a fan of, but as soon as put it on its wheels, got it outside, and the colour's unreal, so especially with the black accents, it's really nice. So we're going to black out the bumpers, the grille, the headlamps, the door handles, the headlights, all the trims black.
The original seat was the original Chev seat, but it had a Chevy logo on it and stripes and gaudy looking things in it. So that's been totally stripped out, and springs, everything foamed a lot. So it's all brand new except for the basic metal frame. So it was a fairly big job. It was about a week in the seat. Door panels they're an aftermarket plastic bought one that we've just tricked it up, put our pattern in it and put a few extra things on it. So we came down this morning, we've been at it all day, and we'll finish our part of it tonight.
The engine run and worked fine on the dyno, so we shouldn't have any issues. The transmission's already got fluid in it, the diff's already got fluid in it, tail shaft fits, everything's been test fitted in the chassis. So basically, the only other thing we've got to do is set up the airbag system, configure all the sensors, and that's probably the only real electronic hurdle we got, other than just making sure the tune's right, which we can retune down on site. It's definitely turned out probably better than what I was thinking. The unibody thing we had spoken about, but didn't think we had the time frame to do it. I'm glad we did it, because otherwise, if we hadn't have done it, we probably would have been disappointed in saying, oh, we could have made it way better, you know. Would have been far easier to do it, because then you've got split body lines and it's easier to paint. Pretty proud of the boys. So I guess with the competition, we've got two brand new cars, a Jeep and a Commodore, which is always going to be a big competition. Both perform really well. I guess we're probably more aligned with the GT Falcon in the aero and the suspension and that sort of stuff. We're probably a little bit more high-tech in some areas, whereas that's more of a restoration, whereas ours is more of a modified rod, basically. The airbags aren't going to give us near the suspension that the Commodore and the Jeep will have, so handling definitely won't be in the same ballpark as those two vehicles. We'll have the power, but again, being a truck, it'll be light in the back end, so it'll just be spinning them out. I guess the big rub is more of a look that Grant wanted. It should allow us to get a bit more traction, that's for sure. Wider the feet, the more traction you generally get, or opposite in a bit wet weather, you just slide easier, which could be fun as well. So, and knowing Melbourne, it could be raining.
So here we are, 98 days later, Todd, so how does it feel?
Just can't believe we did it. Yeah, I was talking to Beck. She was in control of tallying all the hours and timesheets, and it took about 2,600 hours in the 98 days, or just under 14 weeks in total. everything done in-house. I guess the only thing that we did get a hand with was the upholstery. We stripped the seat out, and then the boys at Evan's Trim Shop out at Toowoomba did all the re-trimming of the seat and the door cards, but then they come and fitted the carpet on site, so pretty much a complete build in-house, so pretty happy.
You and Dean did a 24-hour stint on the last day just to try and get the truck to the point where it was drivable and completed. We were only still putting the dash into our truck when the other truck was arriving to pick it up to take it to Melbourne. So the problem is we lost a number of days getting the truck to Melbourne because it's not just down the road, it's 2,000 odd kilometres, which put the other guys at a bit of an advantage over us because they had still several days to complete their builds, and obviously their builds were probably quite as extensive as what we did.
Truck can drive, stop. I guess we've got to thank a lot of our sponsors and all the boys that put in the man hours, staff, suppliers, anyone else that was involved, even to people helping out with coffees and drinks and keeping us all hydrated after the long hours.
And now that we've done number one under our belt and built what we consider is an awesome build, we're looking for a customer now to come out and put their hand up, and we can take their vision into a reality and have them on television as well.
I'd be more than happy to help anyone out that wants to get a car finished to the sort of level that we want to finish a car.
All I can say is bring on the next one.
First sort of driving and testing and driving around, we had a bit of a braking issue where the front brakes were seizing up. Wasn't the brake pedal side of it, so we pulled the master cylinder off and found that there was probably about 3 mil too much preload on the master cylinder. Pulled the master off, pulled the push rod out, adjusted the push rod, put the push rod back in, and then set it back up again, and the brakes were a lot more freer before we couldn't even roll the vehicle. Because the brakes were already sitting, we didn't want to overpressure the brakes in any forced braking. Like, we haven't embedded the brakes in. Like, they still had the black on the wheelwood brakes that wheelwood supply, so we definitely went pretty easy on the run. Safer option. No one wants to see a car like that get put in the wall or something ridiculous, so we went pretty easy. Still pretty proud of what happened.
All these guys have put on a good show of their cars. We've got a bit of a presentation for everyone, so congratulations, guys.
Thanks, mate.
Good running, and hope you've all done really well.
Yeah.
Thanks, Darren.
No dramas.
Thank you.
And we've got one little treat if the winner's up to it, which I believe you're the winner out of the event.
I am, apparently.
So, ready to take on the jet car?
To take it on?
Yep.
I'll give it a crack.
Give it a go.
You're going to smash me. Hopefully you don't cross in front of me and burn my car.
No, we'll try not to, but
okay.
Hopefully we'll put on a good show for the crowd and see
good.
what happens, definitely.
I'm pumped. I can't wait to get out there and have a crack. He's going to blow me into the weeds, no doubt about it. He's got, who knows how many times more horsepower than I've got. But it's going to be exciting, and probably be the only time in my life I get to race a jet car. Going up to the line, I couldn't feel the car, couldn't hear it. I was just, edged up to the lights, and the jet car was to my right, had the window down. Every time he hit the afterburner, the noise just went through my chest. It sort of shakes your internal organs. It was unbelievable. The screen in my dash was, in the centre screen, was flickering. Every time he hit the afterburner, the screen would flicker. And it was crazy. I got a really good start. I think I beat him for maybe, 5 metres, 10 metres, and then he just blew me into the weeds. Look, when he went past, it shook the car, the turbulence of the jet. It's been a great experience to be part of Rides Down Under Workshop Wars. We've all had a great time. It was really good to meet the other teams as well. And look, my hat goes off to the guys that built the C10 and Sash with the GT. Look, they were both ground up, restorations. A huge amount of work went into those cars, and they both, looked fantastic. Rob and the boys at HPF, they did a great job on the Jeep. Next year we'll be looking at doing something completely different. It may not be petrol power, who knows? But the times are changing in the performance industry. So, yeah, bring it on.
If you think you've got what it takes to be part of Workshop Wars, contact us for our next season.